Good evening. We are live, and tonight's discussion is about ecosystem. And I know you look at the title and you see, is Apple's ecosystem losing ground? And you look at the description and you see, down in there it says, is Samsung's ecosystem catching up to Apple? Will Google be able to catch up? Does an ecosystem matter? What advantages and disadvantages are there with an ecosystem? And first of all, what is an ecosystem? Well, we know that in nature, an ecosystem is a well rounded compilation of things that help the environment, that help animals and things that within it grow and prosper and help them to help each other. And in technology with an ecosystem, we look at it and we think about each individual item and we think about how they work well together and the cohesive experience, but that doesn't always mean that necessarily it has to come from one company. And so that's part of it too, when we think about that, Apple's advantages, they're the only ones that are running their operating systems. They're the only ones running iOS, the only ones running Android, or running Android has multitude of things. They're the only ones running Mac OS. They're the only ones running iPad OS. They're the only ones that are doing what they're doing, and that's a huge advantage. And speaking of ecosystems, I knew it. Ike, how's it going? I know that you've been delving into this, and it kind of your tweet inspired me. You're talking about the whole experience with the universal clipboard in Apple's ecosystem and how you've been able to imitate that within the Android and Windows ecosystem. And I think that's important to understand, and I think that it's important for people to realize if there's something that they really want to do and there's a feature that exists within one ecosystem that they really want on the other, for the most part, you're able to do that. Now, Apple is locked in, so if there's something on the Android side that you want on Apple's side, it's more limited. But when I'm talking about the ideas of being able to send messages on multiple devices, that's native within if your carrier supports RCS, and I don't know how it is in the rest of the world. I know in the United States, the carriers are there, and it kind of depends on, though, there's a little bit of a struggle with signal. But there are apps out there that let you have a similar experience. There's Pulse SMS, which that's, I believe, a subscription to be able to sync those between everything, between your desktop and all that. But the feature's there. The ability to copy on one device and paste on the other. There's software like Logitech has software that allows you to use your keyboard and mouse between multiple devices, even across the operating systems. And it's amazing to understand how well this functions. And Ike says, yeah, man, it's super solid, and I'm starting to learn. Most of the things I loved about Apple ecosystem, I've been able to get running Android and Windows. So I have used for a while now. I've been in both ecosystems. I've been using my S22 Ultra and my Galaxy Watch 4 Classic there. One of my favorite Android watches. I haven't been using an Apple Watch. I traded that in. I'm not the type of person to wear multiple watches at once, and if one can do what I want it to do, then it's good to go. So one of the differences that I noticed still is the setup, the search for it, and that's partly on the OEMs not advertising, not pushing it, not promoting it, not saying, hey, we can do this too. And I think that's a huge error within, and it's kind of something that happens often within these products. And I think Google fall short on things, and they finally started advertising their true tone skin color, color accuracy, but they don't pitch the things that general users want. They don't get the emotion in it. They're like, oh, you can do this, but it's not things that everybody's going to use. It's niche items. And so I think that's one of the strong differences still there between the ecosystems is Apple just says, you know, it's there. You'll know how it works. You'll you'll figure it out because it's just kind of a natural experience when you're using things. You go into share and you see AirDrop and they advertised it and it's been around for years and people know what it is, people know how it works, people know, and they don't have a ton of limitations on it. There's no, file size stuff is not really a problem. There's not the, oh, you got to turn on Bluetooth and connect to it and sign into a separate app. And that's part of the difference in the experience and part of the reason why I think people don't benefit. And it's sad that people don't experience these things because they're not made, I guess, as simple, but they're there. And once it's set up, you don't really have to do much beyond that. Now, there are some annoyances. Like, I experienced things like I didn't want my stuff popping up. And when I turned off your phone on my phone, it kept automatically reconnecting. And when I would turn off Bluetooth on my computer, once you set it up, it will use Wi-Fi and still do the same. The way I had it set up, it will still do the same thing because there's a mode in there where you can go set it up where it does it over mobile. And I do that. So, but the seamlessness, and Ike says here, I still feel that Apple's ecosystem is more seamless, especially the setup, whereas I feel power users benefit more from the Android Windows side because we know that it's there. That's true. And there are things that you can do there that you can't do in the Apple ecosystem. And there are things like, for example, I could actually have multiple Android devices set up as long as they're signed into the same account and get all that stuff to sync through. So, for example, you could give your kid a phone, and if you want to be able to kind of make sure that they're not texting inappropriate things and you don't want to pay for it, technically you can set up with your phone and it just runs in the background and you can have that. But also, not even just that, but the idea of like all the photos that people take, it just can be paired up and you can drag and drop them like that. But then there's the sharing methods, and the new thing that I saw that Google is coming out with is sharing to yourself. So I think they call it self-share. So the ability for it just to be when it's between your devices and you set it up, you give it permission, and all you have to do is do that once, and then it's ready to go. Now, I do have some concerns of stability, things like that. Let me greet some people as they've come in. Tech for Your Needs, Lewis, hello. Sharky, hello. Barry, good evening. I started on time this week. I almost started a little early, but I was getting some things figured out. Also, if you can let me know, does StreamYard seem to be more steady and less jittery than what I was having issues with Melon, with the Melon app? I feel like it is. I feel like there's a little bit of a delay on my end between me talking and my mouth moving, but I don't know if that's coming through to you guys. So if you can let me know, that would be great. If it's good, put a Y. If it's a little jittery, put a N in the chat. So I feel like the faultiness of advertising and pushing these things is really what keeps some of these things from being more well developed. They're behind. They're There's a decline. Dex has been out for a long time, and the quality is supposed to improve. And yeah, they have, like, some of the newer devices now support 1440p, but when they pitched it, there was the 4K pitch on there. But as far as ecosystems, the other thing that came to mind is the Pixel Watch. There's been a lot of rumors about this, and I don't like to, fall upon speculation and rumor necessarily, unless it's like kind of my own ideas. But that's not really rumor. That's just, thoughts and creativity and ingenuity and all that. That Google has in the past had a great ecosystem with stuff, and then they kill off these projects. There was the Nexus tablet, which was brilliant. I actually had a version of it. It was basically the same tablet, but there was the Dell Venue series, and I had the 7-inch, and basically it was a Windows tablet, but they had an Android version out, and that thing was incredible. And now they have what they call Chrome OS Flex, and basically you can load that on an old Windows computer or an old Mac and be able to take advantage of that. And with Chrome OS, there's the integration of the quick sharing, and your messages syncing up. Also, Google Fi, the ability to, any device that, if you have Google Fi on your device, you can then sign into your Google account on another device and have your messages and everything sync up just like iMessage, without having to do messages for web, without having to do anything like that. So what all this really means is these features are there, but they're so well hidden. And Apple's guilty of this as well. There are features that are there that people don't really know about, that people don't really look at. For example, to be able to move multiple apps on your screen at one time, like let's say you just downloaded a bunch of photo editing apps and you want to move them all into a folder or all on another screen, the ability to press down, press and hold on, let's see if I can do it here. So like if I press and hold on this app, right, and it jiggles, I can select other apps just by doing this, and I can drag them into a folder. I don't know if you saw that. So just do this, be able to select. If I let go, they just all go back into place. But you can move them around. You can pull them into a folder. You can move it on a different page. Selecting down at the bottom, you can then see your pages, and you can show and hide them. Now, you have to have one page always showing. The ability to stack your widgets, things like that. And you can customize your own stack of widgets and be able to have them automatically scroll through, or you can flick through them. Sharky says, Google does need a Pixel Watch to accompany its phones and buds, but we can't really call it a full ecosystem until they bring back the Slate tablet and introduce a Windows laptop. That's partially true. But the way that kind of your phone development has come into play, where, yeah, if you're using a Samsung device, you get some more advantages of certain things, like being able to, but that's stuff, that features that Google could take advantage of, where you can launch apps from your phone and have them show up on the screen and be able to move multiple apps around and stuff like that. Lewis says Apple had more time to refine its ecosystem, being first, more time. That is a sort of valid point, but if you think about it, like, you have all these other companies, and I think they were too busy competing with each other instead of working together and understanding, like, if they work together, people would buy other products and they'd be able to develop a better experience, that it wouldn't, irregardless of manufacturer of brand, would be able to have this experience. But I think, in a way, thinking about it, that would have required them to be less lazy in a way. And I know this is going to get some people fired up, but if you think about it, if all these companies work together to develop a unified sharing method, if they would have, just like if they would have worked together to have a unified charging method sooner, instead of you had like PPS and USB PD, and there was several wireless sharing, wireless charging methods for a while, and you had NFC that was really cool, and um, Samsung had their own share method. You had like bump to share, and you had all these different things that were going on, and Samsung was trying to make its own, and Google was like, oh, we still own Android, and so we're doing our own, and Samsung was like, no, we want to be the name, so we're going to do our own version of it, and there's all multitude of apps. And if they would have worked together, I think the true competition that would separate them would have been things that they would have had to develop apart from that. So cameras, they work on cameras together. Then it's a matter of which company is developing the best processing, which company is using the best materials, which company is developing the fastest storage, which company is developing the best glass. It wouldn't be software anymore. It would be a hardware thing. It wouldn't be these features that are simply software based. Yeah, there's some hardware based to it. Audio quality, lossless audio, we could have that over wireless if these companies weren't coming up with all these different codecs. Work together. Customers, I feel like, seriously have to sacrifice experience and lose experience because companies are too busy competing rather on things that aren't necessary rather than working together. And if you think about that, companies try to compete against each other, iOS, Apple, and we have experiences that are positive and we have experiences that are negative. And the other thing is, like, if there's a bug, if every manufacturer has a unified release schedule and stuff comes out, they can all work together. All the developers can work together. If there's an app that has an issue, they'll be able to know exactly what's causing it. And this is in advertising and ecosystem and a cohesive experience are just beginning of the benefits of companies working together, of companies promoting things. For example, Wear OS was not promoted for the longest time until somewhat recent. I didn't even realize that there was a section that you could go to in the Play Store where things are separated specifically, segregated for Wear OS compatible apps. Whether it's watch face stuff, but apps that you download them and there's a Wear OS version. There's a section for that, but they never really promoted it. They didn't have it up front. You have games and apps, and you have, movies and TV shows, and you have things like that, but they never advertised it. And this is something that I've come to realize that is detrimental to the experience that we should share together, in that realistically, the best experience shouldn't require you buying necessarily from one company, or it wouldn't have to. See, Apple's advantage, they can say we're the only one that creates all this stuff, and so we can make it work well. Samsung says, well, we don't want to have you locked in, but we kind of have to, because that's the only way we can control it. That's the only way we can make sure it works the way that we want it to. That's the only way we can develop an understanding and share, like, okay, this is what it's called on all of our devices. This is the method. This is how it works. You signed in, and we can control that, and we can know that it's going to work well. They can't guarantee that if they're working with other companies necessarily. Even working with Microsoft, they kind of had to pull their arm and nudge them and get them to finally get on board. And I feel like because Microsoft launched the Surface Duo, that really benefited that as well, because Samsung could say, you know what, you're running Android. Let us develop things with you. Let us develop this quick share. Let us use your operating system and adjust some things and have our own settings on our own 2-in-1s and our own laptops, Galaxy Books, Galaxy Book Pro, Galaxy Book Pro 360, Galaxy Book Go. Let us develop that. Let us create this experience on your operating system as well as Android, and let us benefit each other from that. And on the other hand, Samsung saying that to Microsoft can benefit from it. Microsoft can know what hardware Samsung is going to use, because in order for them to have the software ready when they release new hardware, they kind of have to know that. That's important that they develop that experience together to benefit us all, to really create that experience that so many people enjoy, but also still be able to customize, still be able to enjoy the things that make Android unique, that separates that experience. That you still have the speed, you still have the things that separate the fact that apps aren't combining in the back, crashing in the background or closing in the background. That's the word I was trying to think of, crashing. Hopefully not crashing. Closing in the background to benefit battery. That's kind of the way Apple handles things. But when you relaunch an app, the way that they have it in memory as opposed to storage is it's still partially there and able to load up really fast. And so that's what I kind of want to know, why they don't do this. Why aren't manufacturers working with other companies? I think they're too stubborn. I think they feel like it's a failure or faulty if they need to work with another company, or they need to use other companies' software, or they need to reach out and use their hardware. And they look at what Apple does, and this is going to sound real, eye sheepy, but if you think about it, they have the hardware and the software together, and people love it. People talk about how great it is. Yeah, it's not perfect by no means. I've had bad experiences. I've had issues, but the positive aspect of it is that they benefit from that, but they don't create entirely all the hardware. Samsung creates the displays for some of their products. LG creates displays for others. There's Japan Display creates other ones. Memory and storage is by Samsung. I think LG does some of it. There's that stubbornness, like it says here. Yep, stubborn and want you locked into what they offer. They say if Apple can do it, why don't we? And it's interesting because even Apple is outside of that stubbornness. If you think about it, they work with other companies all the time. They've allowed AirPlay to be used across other things. AirPrint is one of the huge starting companies and things like that. Their willingness to allow these APIs to be used is huge. And even when the AirTags came out, And they said, if Tile, if Samsung, if any other company wants to use that, go ahead, incorporate it into it. You have your technology out there. You want to make it so it works well natively with ours. Use it. Apple TV stuff. The fact that you can select a specific provider, and then when you go to an app, it says, log in with provider. You click that, it brings up, you select what you've already set in the settings, and it goes through and does it. Their willingness to allow, like, I have a really good experience using my TCL TV with AirPlay from my MacBook and using it as a second display. I was using it as a display with an app from my iPad, where I was using my iPad with a virtual PC in the cloud and one display on it and a secondary display wirelessly to my TV. Their willingness to do that when other companies aren't. They're stubborn. They're big-headed. They're willing to sacrifice an experience that all of us should really be able to experience no matter what companies we choose to use. And we wonder, when we say, oh, they do it first, or, oh, there's freedom of choice. Not really. Up to a point of what they choose to let you do. That's all carrier companies. Apple, people talk about Apple locking people in. People talk about other companies locking people in. They all do it. You go to buy a Surface, and they've removed so many ports. There's no expansion of storage. There's no real options in there. You're even limited on which AMD and Intel processors you can use now, and they don't even really offer a powerful computer with true dedicated graphics. It's all integrated graphics on their stuff. Until you get to their studio displays, where you're paying way more, and you gotta go to the higher end ones to get anything above an i5, and to get like an RTX 3080 or 3050 and 3050 Ti, and I think they got 3060s in there, and upgrade your memory and all that stuff. Every other company now is removing things, removing options. You got to buy it the way you want it. You got to pay, hundreds of dollars to go jump storage. Only certain ports even support the full Thunderbolt speeds. And, they mocked Apple for doing that. And it's interesting to see how the ecosystem changes when another company starts doing it as well. Sharky says, in all fairness, no other tech firm locks us down. Locks users in like Apple, they've got it down to a science. Even something as relatively simple as earbuds. Only AirPods work seamlessly with iPhones. Sort of. But like, once you... Even Samsung is doing this now, and like other companies are doing this with their earbuds. If you set it up on one device, you have to then use that. Like, for example, if I set up my Galaxy Buds, I can't even... Their app isn't even available on my iPhone. So you'd have to have a Samsung device or an Android device to use the Galaxy wearable app to then set the specific settings you want. And then if there's a firmware update, it's the same thing. I believe the Pixel Buds have some experiences that are the same way as well. They're doing the same thing with their watch, where I can't even pair it to an iPhone anymore. You'd have to buy like a Galaxy Watch 3 or the Active, or Active 2, I think still allows it. And Lewis says, what held companies from success is greed, wanting everything to themselves, not sharing the wealth. It's true. I truly believe that if Apple wanted to, they could have a majority market share larger than all the Android devices if they chose to do things in similar manners and chose to have more options sooner and chose to not lock people in with iMessage and chose to. I mean, they have huge advantages apart from that. There are people that buy an iPhone and don't even use those things. They want to be able to use they want to just be able to have a good video recording experience, and they like the way an iPhone does it, and they like the color science, and they like the options, and they like the app, and they like the ability to switch between different lenses and things like that. And they like that the front lens allows 4K 60. There are some countries and there are some devices. I mean, we're seeing Xiaomi devices and Poco devices and even OnePlus devices limiting the front cameras. And so when it comes down to it, what I want to say with all this is you can create an ecosystem in other ways. You don't have to necessarily buy all from one company. There's people that do this all the time. They use the Google apps, and they'll have an iPhone and an Android tablet and a Windows computer. I know at least one or two of you out there that are doing this on the daily. I know Dale Vaughn likes his Tab S7 Plus. I think he's talking about upgrading next year when the Tab 9 series comes out to get the 9 Ultra. And he uses a Windows computer, and he uses a iPhone and an Android phone, or he has been, and he just bought an iPad to use. Some of these things we have to keep in mind. The other thing is you can also have an iPhone and have a Windows machine, an Android tablet, and be able to do things like use Telegram for messaging, or even using, if you want to use your native number, if you're like Verizon has Messages Plus, so you can install that app on your tablet, and there's a way to I believe they have a way you can access it from the web on your Windows computer. And T-Mobile has Digits, and there's all ways of cross mingling and having a great experience without necessarily needing to buy from one company. And then, smartwatches, I really understand why they lock down some things. And part of it is, I've come to realize and found out through some research, Samsung had to do that because there are even things within the US that we're not allowed to do on the watch. They've locked out the the blood pressure and some of those features because it's not approved here by the FDA, and if you have in the UK, you're able to use it. There's these benefits that we interesting. Well, it depends on. Okay, so Sharkfin says, when I had an iPhone recently, the Galaxy Wear app worked just fine on it. The issue was incoming phone calls. I had to push on-screen button to hear the caller on my Buds Live. Yeah, it depends. So it's only for the new ones. It's only for like the Buds 2 and the Buds Pro. So some of like the older, like I think the Buds Live, the Buds Plus, and the original Buds don't have that. And like the older the older watches and older earbuds aren't limited like that. It's just for the new ones and for setting it. And I can't even pair it to my iPhone. Like they don't show up in the app. Let me let me install the. Oop, I don't want that app. Let me not that one. So like there's Galaxy Buds, there's the Galaxy health and smart things app. I'm trying to see here. Yeah, so like Galaxy Watch is only showing for like the Gear S. Um, they're limiting what ones you can use it for. It's for um, older ones, and even in their advertising, when the new watches came out, they specified that you wouldn't be able to get the app and have it work on and pair at all with it, which is interesting because you have like the Tick Watch, which works sort of with everything, and when you're talking about like the calls, yeah, it uses it like a Bluetooth headset, so you have to select it, and then it switches over to that method. I remember this with I think it was when I had my Frontier watch that I tried using that with an iPhone, and you had to pair a certain way, and like the Tick Watch, it will pair one way, and then if you want to use it for calls, it had to pair as like a headset instead of connecting as a single device as a watch. It then switches over to headset mode, and it's interesting because, like, for example, I can use AirPods of any sort with other. I mean, obviously, in order to change controls and do certain things, you have to set them up with an iPhone or an iPad. Um, and then, like, even with like a MacBook, you have some limited things. But they have default modes as far as changing in and out of ANC and transparency and other things that's just there, and I can use that. I could use them with my Android devices and it'd work fine. I could even use them with like paired to a Galaxy Watch and be able to go in and out of those because it's built into the firmware of the accessory itself as opposed to a secondary. And I wish that more companies would do that. So, because then there would be a way potentially, if I liked Samsung's earbuds and Samsung, let's say they had headphones and their watch better than any Apple offering on those, if I knew somebody that had a Samsung phone, I could just pair it to that, upgrade the firmware when it comes out, or have like an older Samsung Galaxy phone to do that with, and then just keep using it. But there's no option there. Apple doesn't even allow you to really force you. I mean, you can. You have to connect, and then it has to be plugged in. And I think as far as like some of the AirPods updates, it won't do that while you're doing things because it doesn't want you to disconnect them and then cause an issue with the device because it didn't completely install, or like it's partially installing and you leave the home and you leave the earbuds behind and it isn't complete. No ecosystem is perfect. We all have different ways that we use ecosystems or don't use ecosystems. Sometimes we create our own within usage of multiple devices. It's interesting because I never really thought about that. Ecosystem, I feel like, is something that's significantly important to content creators and some business people that really need to share things between them. That's really where the ecosystem matters. I don't know, other than like with my parents and like my wife when she gets her schedule, I don't see a ton of people walking around just using AirDrop all the time to share stuff, which you can. I remember when I was in college that people were using AirPlay because some of the TVs and stuff had an option where you could AirPlay stuff, and they would use that to share their projects. They would, up on through the projector and things like that. I remember people doing that. I remember bringing an Apple TV in and plugging it in and using that as a way from, I think it was my original iPad, as a way to share. I remember these experiences are very specific to certain, and then there's some people that don't really care. They just buy what they want. They just buy what they're going to use that fits those needs, or they're going to buy based on what other people have told them. And it's like, okay, so you buy an iPhone because most of your people around you use an iPhone and you like iMessage, and maybe you buy Sony headphones because you've been told, okay, the XM4s are really great and they're cheaper than like AirPods Max, and you buy like a Fitbit because your steps and exercise are more important than sharing goals or other metrics, or like a Tag Heuer watch, or like, there's a multitude of smartwatches out there. And maybe then when you're looking to buy a computer, somebody build one for you, or you buy a pre-built because you need to be able to connect up, or you're just going to connect up to a TV, or you have a monitor that you are going to use, or you have a large screen you're going to use. And so you buy what people advise you to use, and you don't think anything of buying an ecosystem. And then you have other people that their first product from a company they really liked, they bought an iPad and they really enjoyed that experience, and then they go in and they're like, you know what, I liked that iPad. I had an Android device and it was okay, but I didn't really use a lot of the features. I really like what my iPad has to offer. I've gotten used to the gestures, the widgets, certain things. Like, I'm going to go buy an iPhone, and they buy an iPhone. And then they have somebody who uses a MacBook, or they're looking for something that's portable, quiet, has good battery life, and they hear things good about the MacBook Air and they buy that. And then they go, you know what, I'm into exercise, or I'm older and I want a device that I can easily send a message with. If I fall, it's gonna, so they buy an Apple Watch, and that's how they get into the Apple ecosystem. And I'm talking about this because I know people that have done this. I know, people that have gotten into this. I know my dad, started with an Apple Watch, or with an iPhone, and then my mom had an iPhone, and then Apple Watch and things like that. And I gave her my Apple Watch, and then now my mom has a Series 6 Apple Watch. And I know people that have done the same thing with Samsung. They really like their Samsung phone, and they tried an older Samsung tablet and they didn't really care for it, and they didn't really care for the old Galaxy Tab series and like the Tab 8.0 and Tab 10 and all these things, and they didn't. And like me, I tried the it was the Tab S Pro 12. It was their Windows 2-in-1, kind of like a Surface, where it was like a normal tablet, but it ran Windows, and it was okay. I ended up trading that, and I sold it to a guy who was a minister that wanted something that ran Windows and be able to connect up to a monitor and be able to do his PowerPoint and do all this stuff. He didn't need anything super powerful, and it got okay battery life, and it was good. And he's still using it as far as I know. But like my wife's mom's cousin, Samsung phone, but doesn't hardly know anything about it. She likes her Android because she can set up funny ringtones, so when somebody calls, it will she can have a specific ringtone that a song that reminds her of them, or a tone that reminds her of them, and she can have different volumes. She can crank it up because she's hard of hearing, or have the vibrate. There's options in there, and that's what she's used. And she got a good deal on it, and it's affordable, and so she's still using, and it's like an S8 or S9, maybe S9 or S10. I think she's got an S10 now. And so we all get into the stuff for a different reason. Sometimes we move away from an ecosystem because we had a problem and maybe the customer service was poor, or the device broke and we couldn't get them to repair it, and we had to wait and we got sick of it, and we heard, oh, this, we can go to the Apple store, we can go to Best Buy and get this repaired, but I have to, go through all this to get my OnePlus or my LG or my whatever. And even on like the Samsung side, like Sharkfin said here, Samsung's tablets didn't start becoming great and more truly competitive with iPads until the S5 or S6. Yeah, really the S6, like the S5 and S5e and S6 were really weird. And then the S6 Lite, and then it was weird because like the S5e was actually better than in some ways than like the S6 Lite and the S6 and all this confusion. And now they're great. Now we have these great devices depending on your need, depending on what you prefer, depending on what you're going to use it for. And that's the thing about all of this. And that brings us back to how, as a creator or as techies or as people, that enjoy technology, you're watching probably because you enjoy technology or you enjoy what I have to say or whatever. It's our job to kind of let people know, hey, this is the best for your use case. Maybe they're okay with like a regular iPad or like an iPad mini, and there's not really a super small Samsung tablet that necessarily is going to get updates for as long as that and supports like a good quality pen. You have to go with like their premier series to get that experience, right? To get it included, to get the pressure sensitivity and all the stuff, and get a good processing speed, and to get like DeX and things that like differentiate it from using another Android tablet, right? Maybe that's what they need, and they need cellular, so you recommend something like this, or even an older model with LTE instead of 5G because they don't get it in that area. For some people, that's why they buy products. Some people, they know that they know and they can be assured that it's gonna last and get updates for years to come. Now, Google and Samsung and stuff has increased the length of which they're supporting devices, and other companies have come out and said we're going to do the same thing. But until it's 4 or 5 years from now and they've done that, and we can trust that they've done that, and they've guaranteed in that trust, it's simply that. And so yes, there are advantages that companies like Apple have because they've been around longer, and they started out doing that from the get-go. From the fact that you can have a 10-year-old Mac that still runs okay. Yes, that is a magenta colored case. Well, actually, this doesn't even necessarily make it look right. It's kind of darker. It's like a purpley color case. It's a spec case. It's the only one and only color that they had in the store that wasn't one of those bulky cases or like $100 case or like the UAG one, or like some of these. They didn't really have a lot of options when I picked up my iPad from Best Buy, and I wasn't going to wait days for something to show up on Amazon. So these experiences that we have are really beneficial based on, a lot of times our buying continues from what happened in the past. So even when other companies are starting to offer similar experiences or better experiences maybe for the user, that user just continues to do what they're doing, and people wonder, okay, why are people buying an iPhone and maybe it's not the best for them? Or why are people buying this and this device? Like, for me, this is great. It's basically a larger version of my iPhone, same processor and stuff, and doesn't have as much memory as like an iPad Pro, and it doesn't have the high refresh rate. But I'm not gaming. I'm not a huge drawer. When I'm scrolling mainly through social media, and like the update I'm on, iPad OS 15.5 Beta 2 has made things smooth. So for me, it's great. The size of it's just brilliant, as you might say. Um, Second screen stuff. Yeah, Chris says best iPad for second screen stuff without the crap the Pro has that I don't need. Yeah, and like the Air is up there, but I feel like now like that's a little confusing because yes, and I even got the purple one. And universal control and all these features that it benefits from being part of this ecosystem. Even the cameras on this thing are pretty good. Yes, I was one of those people that went out and went and took some pictures in the backyard. You want something that's pocketable, purseable, can actually fit in a car mount, and can have cellular. There's some awesome things on there. I did experience. Sharkfin says, "Have you guys experienced the jelly scrolling issue?" I did, but it's one of those like my eyes are used to, for the most part, 120 hertz stuff. Like I'm on my iMac right now, and scrolling on there, I can, um, you know, my eyes are adjusted. But like I notice it more. I notice it less when I'm holding it this way because I'm seeing more at a time, and then when I get through a section, I just kind of scroll up real quick to the next section. When I'm holding it, this way, and you're doing small movements at a time. But for me, it actually was more noticeable in like landscape orientation because I'm just doing I'm skimming through, and so I'm constantly swiping to get more. And in portrait mode, because I'm seeing so much at a time, I'm just reading down. I get down to the bottom, and I just kind of swipe that all up past, go to the next section and read. It's how I use it. It's weird. It's the same way I use phones. I'm not sitting there like flicking through stuff a ton. And like I said, for some reason, something with the most recent beta update seems to have made it less noticeable and smoother. And that's the other thing. So some people buy devices because of updates. And, on another I don't know, I just guess I didn't really notice it much. Yeah, some people are saying in the chat here, I thought it was only portrait mode issue. It could be because of the way the display is made. But like I said, I don't really scroll like to me, I guess what I was thinking about is the 60 hertz. I'm noticing that more so than like actual like a jelly effect. And it's interesting because I do believe that software can change things. Because, for example, on my Samsung devices, for a while, I had some issues where when I would quickly scroll, or like if I was scrolling and I stopped and I'm like scrolling up and down, looking at like comparing between two photos or something on the screen, and I would notice that people's profile pictures would look like go from like a circle to like an elongated oval and look funky. So with this being said, this is something I would like to cover on on my next live stream, perhaps, is software updates and the differences between those, between how Apple handles software updates versus Android, and how really they matter differently for iOS and iPad OS and updates versus Android updates. I thank you all for joining me. It's been about 55 minutes. In 5 minutes or so, I believe Wired Wednesday should be starting. Easy Computer Solutions, GG, Barry Johnson, Bionic Scoop, holler at your boy. I don't know who all will be there. So what I'd like to say is thank you to Ike Tech Talk, Tech for Your Needs, Barry Johnson, Sharkfin Tech, Art Dog, Battery Power, Tech 702, and all for coming through. And I will see you all in the next live stream, which more than likely will be Sunday night. There's no holiday this weekend. If not, I'll see you all next Wednesday. Um, Perhaps Monday, at an evening live stream, and just hit the notification bell, like this, subscribe. If you haven't seen my video I dropped today, check it out. It's about the MagSafe battery pack and how to do the firmware update and why you should do that now, and what kind of changes they made in there. Thanks for watching. See you all in the next one. Also, hashtag replay crew if you